Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, the comeback coach, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
Welcome to the Reforge Your Life Show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera, and here at the Reforge Your Life Show, we love to show you that the comeback is more than possible. And today, I'm excited about the guest I'm bringing to the show. Y'all are going to love her energy, her story. She's a holistic practitioner, an emotional coach. Katherine Ippel, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to dive deeper into the stories and the comeback.
Yes. And I'm grateful to be able to share this platform with you. And I'm excited about diving in as well. And I've heard your story, but there's no way that I'm as qualified as you are to tell that story. So I'd love for you to share with the audience your story and let them know a little bit more about you.
Sure, I'd love to. So, as you've shared, I'm a emotional support coach and holistic practitioner now, but I didn't start that way. I actually started working as a production manager in entertainment, working on live events and themed attractions for theme parks all around the world. And as great as that sounds, on paper, it was not fulfilling for me. And it became a very, uh, in a sense, soul crushing job for me because it wasn't something that my heart was in it anymore. And that led me to lead to alcohol and cannabis to kind of fill the void, or really to numb the void of feeling unfulfilled and facing the fact that I had worked my whole life for this career and built quite a reputation and name for myself in that industry. And however, it didn't light me up. It didn't fill my heart or my life up in the ways in which I was anticipating. So I had a very depressive moment where I had to come to terms with the fact that everything I worked for in my life wasn't actually good for me. And unfortunately, that led me to use alcohol and cannabis way more than one person should. And after having a few moments where I just hit rock bottom and made some very poor choices, I realized that I had to make a change. I didn't want to live that life. I didn't want to have to wake up, go to work, come home, drink, go to sleep, and repeat. I just knew that there had to be more to life than that. So I really took my life into my responsibility and started going to yoga a lot more. Through that, I got into other forms of energy work, Reiki and sound healing, started um, getting back into therapy for myself, and then ultimately took a cognitive behavioral therapy coaching course and used CBT on myself to help get me out of those addictive patterns. And since then, I've created the neuroresonance method, where I use that to help other people work out of their patterns, whether it's addictions or habits that they want to break, by using cognitive behavioral therapy, sound healing, and Reiki.
That's awesome, and congratulations on your sobriety and being able to find your way out of that funk. Because I know all about that funk. I fell into that funk with drugs and alcohol, and man, it could really take control of your life as long as you allow it to.
Yes.
So, congratulations for stepping up and defending yourself and standing up for yourself and taking that stance to say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna take control of my life because I'm not a victim of my circumstances and conditions. They don't control my destiny. I do. Um, so let's go back for a minute and I want to talk about when you were deep in the alcohol and the cannabis, and what it was doing to your life and what was going on. What was the repeat like? What was some of the challenges that you went through in those moments?
Ugh, there are so many challenges, but getting back into it, it was a way for me to not feel what I was feeling. It was a way for me to it was essentially a band-aid for me to keep going and showing up at work. And of course, I wouldn't drink at work, but it was as soon as work was done, there was usually some sort of happy hour that my coworkers and I were like, let's go to this. And I would come home and just keep uh, drinking and smoke from there. And I was using that as a way to not think about making a change. So that was keeping me stuck in that lifestyle, even though I knew it wasn't the right lifestyle for me, it wasn't healthy. But once you're in it, once alcohol and drugs have a hold on you, that's what you start to seek. You're seeking that like first time experience, that liberation from your thoughts.
Yeah. What were you what change were you running from? What was it you were drinking and drugging to numb? What was it you were running away from?
The fact that I thought I was a failure because I had worked my whole life to be a project manager in entertainment and I was doing it. However, I wasn't happy, it wasn't fulfilling, um, and I was blaming all the different companies that I worked for rather than looking inward, looking at myself and how I felt about it. I was like, okay, well, it's this company. This is a smaller company, so this is how it has to be. Or like, okay, now I'm at a big company, one of the six major studios, and I still hate what I'm doing. Um, so I didn't, and for me, making the choice to leave that industry was, in a sense, working through failure
Yeah.
because I had trained and spent so much time, so much money in getting the certifications, the educations for that, that I thought by leaving was admitting I was defeated. But now I see in actuality, it was just I was working towards something that wasn't aligned with my personality and my energy. And I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah. It's amazing how we could do something for so long, but it not being in alignment with the energy and who we truly are, right? Because I went through years of putting that mask on and the success mask and making all the money and hiding behind the success, and inside, man, I remember being broken, and I remember being a shell of who I truly was, but from the outside it looked like glitz and glamour for a while. So when did you have that turning point? When did you realize that, man, you know what, I don't want to be in the entertainment world anymore. This isn't who I am. This isn't what fulfills me. This isn't what's going to wake me up without the alarm clock in the morning. This isn't what's going to have me. This isn't what lights me up inside. Because I'm sure it started out that way, right? It started off as, man,
Mhm.
this is where I belong. I belong in this world. I belong in the entertainment business. This is who I am. And then all of a sudden, that glimmer shuts off and the darkness stays on.
Yes. And that's exactly how it felt. Like at first, I felt that I was the king of the world. I was conquering all the projects I was on, and it did have that sense of fame and glamour to it. And similar to as how you felt, it just started to feel like I was hiding where I would show up, I would come in, on paper, it sounded like my job was amazing. It sounded like I was great at doing it, and it f it just felt like I was living a role that wasn't actually who I was, and I was becoming this shell of a person and becoming so bitter with the world, with everyone around me. And it wasn't until I had so when I started doing yoga, that studio that I was taking classes at started offering a teacher training program, and I decided to take it really so that I could learn how to do yoga for my body and not have to rely on a class schedule at the studio because I had hours that would change depending on the project I was doing and when installation had to happen. So I couldn't always make it into a studio just based on my own hours. And while I was in class learning how to become a yoga teacher, that's when I started considering like, well, what if I did teach a few yoga classes like in addition to the entertainment work that I'm doing? So once I completed the program, I started teaching at that studio, and there was one class that really highlighted how much I needed to make a change. It was a small class at 6:30 in the morning, as I was able to teach it before going to work. And I had 4 people that day, and everyone came in super tired, just not looking forward to their day, and then at the end of that hour, I could see everyone just being more alive, more awake, more vibrant. Everyone had commented on how they felt uplifted and were ready for their day. And then I went to work. I went to my regular corporate entertainment job. Was working on a big event in that park, and partway through the day, I just had this moment where I realized I got more fulfillment out of teaching those 4 people a 1-hour yoga class than I had gotten in my whole day at work.
Mm.
And that's when I knew I had to make a shift. And I thought that I was crazy because when you look on paper of an entertainment job that's making good money, and then here I'm considering walking away from that to become a yoga teacher. But I had to follow where my heart was leading me at that point because I had been living, gosh, like maybe 2 years in that depressed, addictive pattern
Mm.
before I finally had the wake up moment and the motivation to actually change.
Yeah, no, and it, congratulations on following your intuition on that and following, you know, your higher source of whether you call it God, the universe, infinite intelligence, whatever you believe, to guide you towards that direction of where your purpose is, and acknowledging that that pull was pulling you in that direction. Because I mean, there's people who ignore that for years and years, and sometimes never follow that pull, never follow that that intuitive hit that's leading them in the direction where they're supposed to go, and then they end up struggling their whole life. So that was a big turning point for you, and then you mentioned how when you came off of drugs and alcohol, you used CBT to be able to shift your paradigm.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what that looked like?
Yes, absolutely. So, CBT stands for cognitive behavioral therapy. And what it does is it helps you to identify your thoughts. So there's something that I use that's called an automatic thoughts tracker. and you're just logging the different thoughts that you have. And for me, when I started doing it, a lot of my thoughts were negative. It was a lot of self-doubt, a lot of self-sabotaging behavior of I can't do this, I'm an imposter. And once you have those thoughts, you're looking for evidence that supports those thoughts. And a lot of times, in instances like that, there isn't going to be evidence that supports those thoughts. So once you identify that there's no evidence for that thought, you start looking at what evidence do you have. And that's when I would acknowledge, like, oh, I went to training for this. Like, I've dedicated more time and given myself more resources to learn how to use cognitive behavioral therapy effectively. I've also learned the mechanics of yoga and was deepening my understanding in other energetic modalities as well at the same time. So instead of telling myself that I was an imposter, I was telling myself that I was getting the education I needed to work in the field that I wanted to work in. And from that, it helps boost your confidence so that you keep doing those things. And slowly but surely, while you're doing that, those negative thoughts start to fall away and you're focusing more on the positive thoughts, what is actually happening. And
Mhm.
so that's how I was able to shift my paradigm. It was a lot of back and forth at the
Yeah.
beginning. Um, and then it's like working out, you're building up a muscle. So the more that you do it, the more that you use it, the easier it starts to become.
Absolutely. Repetition is the mother of skill. And,
Mhm.
and man, so what I'm hearing you say, and I think it's really important for the audience to pick up on this because this is powerful because our thoughts become our emotions and feelings. Those emotions and feelings become our reaction, and those reactions become our results, right?
Right.
So what you're talking about doing here is being aware of your thoughts and then reframing those thoughts reframing the negative thoughts that you have and turning them into positive thoughts and positive affirmations about yourself and creating a new story that you're building did I hear you correctly on that? Am I sharing
Yes,
that properly
that's
with the audience?
correct.
And I think that it's important for everyone to realize that the story that you tell yourself is the story that you end up living.
Yes.
So making sure that you are conscious of the thoughts you say to yourself. And listen, nobody's saying, I'm not sitting here saying that you're never going to have a negative thought again. No, those negative thoughts are
Yeah.
going to come up, but it's learning how to control those negative thoughts and realizing that your thoughts aren't controlling you. You're in control of your thoughts.
Yes.
And and that's what Catherine's talking about right now. And I think it's so powerful. That's why I wanted to stop and just acknowledge that because man, it's so vital for your success to understand the process there and how that works. So Catherine, what was some of those limited beliefs and some of those negative thoughts that you were telling yourself during your time where you were going through those moments of alcohol and drugs?
Some of the things that I was telling myself was that this this was life. This was the life that everybody talked about. To me, it seemed more like a checklist of go to school, get the job, get get the partner, get the house, have the family. And I remember thinking that that thought trapped me and in mentally, if that makes sense. I just felt so trapped by that box of an idea of what life was. And yet I was still using that checklist because I was like, well, I have the job, I got the education, I have a partner. Um, we're on the way to starting a deeper life together. And even though I was depressed and still had all those things, I just kept telling myself um, that it was my fault that I was feeling this way, that it was that was my way of trying to sabotage all the good things that I had in my life. And I just told myself that I couldn't do anything else because that was what I knew how to do. So I'm like, if I can't make entertainment work, then it's my problem.
Right.
So um, I just really kept being negative on myself and keeping myself small by saying that the only thing that I was capable of doing and knew how to do was the entertainment work I was doing.
Yeah. It's incredible how when we're in that moment of boxing ourselves into something, that we're talking about only one way we can get out, and
Mhm.
only one way we can do something, and then there's so many of the CANTs that are surrounding us rather than the other way around, right? The word can is supposed to be removed because it's supposed to be non-existent, and the I can, I will is supposed to be things that we surround ourselves with. But when we're in that moment of rock bottom, when we're in our moment of those downturns, man, that word can't is so monumental in our vocabulary and in our life, right? Um, so what was some of the new beliefs that you started building when you started cracking through that belief system of, you know what, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough to do that. I got to stay stuck in this situation. What were some of the new beliefs that you built? Because I believe when we crack through limited beliefs, we build a new belief system.
Absolutely, and you kinda have to because you're dismantling your old beliefs, so you've gotta replace it with something. Um, and another thing that I was telling myself when I was in my, rock bottom was that I was broken because I was like, "Well, I'm the problem because everything on paper looks great, so I'm broken, like, what is it in me?" And that was the first thing that I started to work on when I was shifting my paradigm of I'm I'm not broken. I'm giving myself the freedom to feel. And the feelings that I needed to feel weren't necessarily happy. They weren't like the fun emotions that everybody thinks about of like joy, happiness, love. It was a lot of anger, sadness, and grief because I was grieving a job and a lifestyle that was the only thing I knew.
Yeah.
Um, so I allowed myself to feel, and by feeling out, I would tell myself that part of being a human is to feel all of the range of emotions. So by allowing myself to feel even the lower vibrational emotions, I was giving myself the freedom to experience more of my own humanity that I was afraid of feeling.
Yeah. And man, it's so powerful to give yourself permission to feel. Right?
Mhm.
Because when you're drinking and drugging, you're trying not to feel and you wanna stay away from, feelings and being vulnerable, and we look at vulnerable as a weakness back then, when vulnerable, on the other hand, is really a superpower at the end of the day, right? It's a powerful, tool that we could utilize towards our advantage, and it's amazing how we could look at you can look at yourself broken in one hand, right? But then also realize, you know what? I'm not broken, but man, I'm also not a victim of my circumstances and conditions. They don't control my destiny. I do. But I
Right.
have to realize that everything around me isn't the problem. I'm the problem. I have to change me from the inside out. I have to peel back the onion and take stock of who I am. So what was that like, that peeling back of the onion? Because I know going through sobriety is a lot of people don't realize that putting the drugs and alcohol down, that's the easy part. It's about doing that inner work. That's where the real job is, and turning yourself inside out and changing that person from within. So tell us a little bit about what that was like for you.
Um, that was a very difficult process because at that point, I I was not vulnerable. Vulnerability made me super uncomfortable because that meant that I had to admit my shortcomings and or my flaws, which in when you're in that state, coming off of alcohol and drugs, that's the last thing you want to do is admit that you're not perfect or you're not great. So I started telling myself that vulnerability inspires strength and that strength equaled confidence and confidence was sexy. And by constantly telling myself that, it was allowing myself to face everything that I was hiding. I had gotten, um, while I was in my addictive phase, I was in an affair with one of like the relationship I had at a time. So I was cheating on them. And I never processed that when I was in it. It was something that I again used alcohol and weed to avoid feeling and to avoid really thinking about the consequences for everybody involved. So that was the thing that I really focused on when I was coming off of alcohol and drugs was why was I driven to that point? Um, what were the feelings surrounding my choices for that? And forgiving myself for that because
Yeah.
that's not something I was proud of, is not something that I would ever do now and haven't done since. Uh, but that was a big thing that I was holding on to. And that came out in a few yoga classes. Like we were holding a pose and I just like started crying. And those were the thoughts and emotions that were surrounding me. Uh, so I just, it got to the point where yoga was such a cathartic emotional break for me that I would do it every morning. And I had a journal that just lived by my yoga mat in my house. And I would be doing yoga, I would start crying, I would just pick up my journal and start journaling about all the things that came up. And and then I would actually like share them with, therapists, coaches to process that. And by speaking into those pain points, those different situations, gave me more freedom, gave me power over that to realize that, yes, I made those choices. I am not that person today that makes those choices.
Yes. Yeah, your past doesn't define you.
Mm-hmm.
You could utilize it to catapult you into your future, but it doesn't have to define you. That's a perfect example. Beautifully, beautifully said.
Thank
So
you.
I believe that when we crack through these limited beliefs and build that new belief system, that there's a core value system that's uncovered, and that those core values we're able to lean into in our most difficult times. And difficult times still arise now in our life, right? So what are some of those core values that you uncovered and that you live by today?
Well, the first one is that vulnerability inspires strength. So that is one of my core values. And whenever I am feeling something or don't want to talk about something with someone, I always have to remind myself like vulnerability inspires strength because I can keep it bottled up and what good is that going to do? Or we can talk about it and get it out in the air, come to an understanding and or agreement. And authenticity is another one of my core values, really being authentic, living to what feels good to you, what's in alignment for you, rather than trying to live a mask that you've been living or that other people put on you. And honesty is another one of my core values, is being honest, not just with other people, but with yourself. How are you feeling on a day-to-day basis? Are you being honest to yourself, and are you living in integrity with what it is that you're teaching and sharing in the world? Or is there something that's holding you back from embracing
Right.
everything that you teach.
Yeah, that's real, man. Authenticity, integrity, and vulnerability. Three keys to success are three of your core values, and that's powerful, girl.
Thank you.
Catherine, I'd love for you to share with the audience where they could find you and what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm based in San Diego, but I offer sessions virtually as well. Though you can find me on Instagram and TikTok under Eipel Healing, EIPL Healing, and also on my website to take a full look at all of my offerings. That's Eipel, EIPL Healing.com. And you can also reach out to me through my website on the contact us page. Uh, And for anyone who's interested, I want to offer a free emotional support coaching session. So, on my website, if you go to the emotional support coaching session and check out, if you use the code WELCOME, you'll get a free session.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for giving that away to the audience, and all
My
that's gonna be in
pleasure.
the show notes, yeah. Man, poor you. You got to live in that beautiful weather of San Diego all year round. Huh?
Yes, I love it. I grew up in Chicago, and
My
the
God, what a difference, huh?
the
My
cold is not
God,
for me. Like,
man.
I remember walking outside, being so cold, bundled up in boots and scarves, hats, the whole puffy winter coat, and just being frigid, and I would scream into my scarf because it would help warm me up. Um, so once I was old enough to leave Chicago, I did, and, SoCal's been a great place to seek refuge.
Yeah, I bet it has. Awesome, man. Good for you. That's great. And so, a couple of questions that I ask all my guests.
Okay.
Uh, the first is, when you hear the word purpose, what does that mean to you?
Purpose to me is your mission. Why are you here on earth? Because I believe that everyone's here to help each other. So you have come here with a mission, with a lesson or teaching that you want to share with other people. So to me, that is your purpose.
Yes, I love that. And when you hear the word reforge, what comes to mind?
Repaving your life. That's what comes to my mind. As I think there have been so many times, just in my life alone, where I've had to pivot, redirect, repave a whole lifestyle or a way of thinking. And so many of my friends and clients have had to do that as well. So, Reforge is reforging your life.
Yes, repave. I love that. And if you could go back, say 20 years, um, and tell the young Catherine one piece of advice, what would that be?
Always follow your heart despite what other people say about it.
Mm, it's a big one. But and then Catherine, there's somebody out there right now who's struggling. They're looking to reforge their life. They don't have their tools, the whereabouts, whether it's in their business, their finance, their relationship, their health. They're looking to reforge. What's one piece of advice you could give that person?
Hmm, that's a great question. I would start with identifying where it is that you want to be, like creating that. What is your ideal life? What does that look like?
Mm,
And using that to create guidelines or little like a roadmap as to get from where you are to there. Because you've given yourself a goal, so then it's creating those steps of what can you do even if you have limited resources. Like, are there um, free coachings that you can do? Are there courses online that can help you shift your mindset or acquire a new skill. Uh, because I believe where there's a will, there's a way.
That's right.
You just have to identify where it is you want that end goal to be and create your map from that.
And creating that map gives you clarity.
Mhm.
And without clarity, you're not going to get to where you want to get to. You're not going to get there. It's going to be chaos if you try to do it without that roadmap. So get that roadmap is right. Um, what's one thing the audience doesn't know about Catherine that she enjoys doing for fun?
Um, I enjoy doing aerial yoga and aerial dance for fun.
Aerial dance. What was the last one?
Aerial dance and aerial yoga. So
Okay.
it's, uh, think Cirque du Soleil, like doing the aerial silks and hammocks. That's what I like to do for fun, but I'm just gonna preface I'm not Cirque du Soleil status, but I
I
get
was
a
about
lot
to
of
put
fun
you
and
on the spot
enjoyment
with that
out
one, girl.
of it. What was that?
I said I was about to put you on the spot with the Circus Soleil. I was like, whoa, let me find out, Catherine.
I mean, I like to do spins and drops, but, like, I'm not ready to apply to Cirque du Soleil. I don't need that rejection just yet.
I'm sure you do fine, girl. I'm sure you do fine.
Oh, thank you.
Oh man. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming through on today's episode. I knew you were gonna bring an amazing story and just that authenticity with you, and you did that times 100. And I really appreciate it. I'm grateful to be able to share this platform with you, girl.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me onto your podcast and, uh, giving me the opportunity and the platform to be authentic and to share stories, because I think so often when you're in it and you're in your rock bottom, you don't see a way out. You think that that's life. So I really appreciate what you're doing with your podcast and showing that there are many different rock bottoms and many different ways to change your life from them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And for all the viewers out there, people watching, people checking it out through Spotify, listening to it, however you're tuning in, I really appreciate y'all. And I'm going to ask the same ask that I ask every episode. Don't forget to LFSS, like, follow, subscribe, and most importantly, share the episode because there's somebody out there right now who's looking to reforge their life, whether it's in their business, their finances, their health, their relationship, and they don't have the tools. And you sharing this episode or past episodes can help them reforge their life. So don't forget, please share the episode. Stay productive, stay purposeful, and stay blessed, yeah. All right, Catherine, thank you so much, man. You're the best. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you coming through. This was great.
Thank you. I appreciate you waiting for me. I'm sorry about that hold up at the beginning.
No, come on. No apology for that. It's not that serious. It's all right. I appreciate you coming through and being patient with me on the scheduling also. If I could ask you for one quick ask before you jump off, it's just you and the camera. If you could just give a quick testimonial
Sure.
whenever you're ready.
Testimonial about
Your
working.
experience on the show, on the Reforge Your Life show with Joe Rivera.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. So I just want to give a big thank you to Joe Riviera and his team for being on the Reforge Your Life podcast with Joe Riviera. It was a very seamless experience. Right from scheduling, I was able to schedule a call with Joe, and we, talked about where our stories aligned and being how it could fit into the theme of the podcast. And then his team was always on top of it, making sure that I had links to schedule a podcast episode with him. And once it came time to actually record the podcast, we had some issues with sound, and his team got everything up and running really quickly. And the conversation just felt natural, which I love because I think authenticity and transparency are key in life. So, highly recommend being on the podcast with Joe Riviera. Thank you for this opportunity.
Awesome, 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 awesome. Love it, girl. Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
make sure my team will reach out to you when we get closer to release. It's going to be definitely going to be after the new year.
Okay.
but they'll reach out on. And you shared your IG handle and all that other stuff, right?
I should have, yeah.
Yeah. So my team will reach out to you on IG and for us to cross promote it.
Okay,
It
perfect.
comes out, and then we'll get you all the other stuff, the episode for you to share with your audience and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
You
God
too.
bless. Thanks. Thanks, Catherine.
Bye, Joe.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.